7 wedding dresses, 8 husbands, one woman who became the ultimate symbol of Hollywood's impossible love story. This isn't fiction. This is Elizabeth Taylor, and she's only the beginning. She was 18 when she married for the first time. Conrad Nicky Hilton Jr., handsome, rich, and already a drunk. The wedding looked like a movie premiere. 3,000 roses, a gown sewn with real pearls, MGM footing the bill. 9 months later, Elizabeth fled to her mother's house with a black eye and a story the studio buried. First lesson Hollywood taught her? Fame can buy the wedding, but it can't buy the marriage. 2 years later, she tried again with Michael Wilding, a gentle British actor 20 years older. He gave her stability and 2 sons, but not excitement. While she burned up the screen in Giant and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Wilding faded into dinner theater. By 1957, she was restless, reckless, and ready for something bigger. Mike Todd was bigger. The bombastic producer swept in wearing a mink coat and a grin, promising the world and actually delivering it. They married in Acapulco in 1957, both on their 3rd marriages, both laughing at the odds. Todd showered her with jewels so huge, the press nicknamed her the walking jewelry store. For 13 perfect months, they were the loudest, happiest couple in Hollywood. Then his private plane, ironically named Lucky Liz, exploded over New Mexico. Elizabeth screamed so hard in the hospital corridor that nurses had to sedate her. Grief made her ruthless. She took comfort in Todd's best friend, Eddie Fisher, who left Debbie Reynolds and their 2 toddlers to be with her. America hated her for it. Crowds booed outside theaters. Vatican newspapers called her an erotic vagrant. She didn't care. In 1959, Fisher became husband number 4, and Elizabeth wore the scandal like another diamond. 5 years later, on the set of Cleopatra, she locked eyes with Richard Burton across a Roman palace made of plywood and paint. One look at Eddie Fisher was yesterday's news. She divorced him, married Burton in 1964, divorced him 10 years later, remarried him 16 months after that, then divorced him again. Burton was the love of her life, twice. After Burton came a senator, John Warner, who wanted a political wife. Then a construction worker she met in rehab. 8 ceremonies in total. She kept every ring, every memory, every scar. When she died in 2011 at 79, the ring Richard Burton gave her in 1968, a 33-carat croup diamond, was still on her finger. She once said, "I don't think of the past as mistakes. I think of them as love stories that ended." Elizabeth.
Artie Shaw didn't just play swing, he lived at a triple speed. By the time most men had 1 wife and a mortgage, the clarinet genius had already racked up 6 marriages, 5 divorces, and a reputation as the most impossible romantic in America. Born Arthur Arshevsky in 1910 on the Lower East Side, he was a skinny Jewish kid who discovered the clarinet and decided monogamy was for suckers. Fame hit him like a freight train in 1938 with a little record called Begin the Begin. Overnight, he was bigger than Benny Goodman, mobbed by screaming girls who tore the buttons off his tuxedo. Money poured in, and so did women. Wife number 1, Jane Carnes, a nurse, 1932, lasted 6 months. Artie said later, "We were both too young, and I was already bored." Wife number 2, Margaret Allen, 1934, lasted a year. Wife number 3, Betty Kern, daughter of songwriter Jerome Kern, 1937. Artie called it marrying the family business. They fought over his touring schedule and split in 1938. Then came the big ones. In 1940, at the absolute peak of his fame, Artie walked into the Brown Derby in Los Angeles and saw Lana Turner sitting at the bar in a white dress that looked painted on. She was 19, blonde, and already MGM's hottest new star. Artie proposed on the spot. They eloped to Las Vegas that same night. The next morning, the studio heads woke up to headlines screaming, "Bandleader steals sweater girl." MGM was furious. They had Lana under contract and didn't want her tied to a jazz musician. Artie didn't care. For 4 wild months, they lived like royalty. Penthouses, champagne, fights that rattled the chandeliers. Lana wanted a movie star husband. Artie wanted a woman who understood 3 a.m. jam sessions. They divorced in 1941 with Lana keeping the house and Artie keeping the headlines. Less than a year later, he did it again, this time with Betty Grable's best friend, a Rudy head named Kathleen Winslow. Marriage number 5. She lasted 11 months. But the knockout punch came in 1945. Artie met Ava Gardner at a party in Hollywood. She was 22, married to Mickey Rooney, and bored out of her mind. Artie was 35, twice divorced from movie stars, and still allergic to commitment. They started an affair that lit up the gossip columns. When Ava finally divorced Rooney, Artie shocked everyone by actually marrying her, wife number 6. For a minute, it looked like he'd finally met his match. Both beautiful, both stubborn, both allergic to Hollywood rules. They bought a ranch, posed for pictures riding horses, and told reporters this one was forever. It lasted 13 months. Ava later said, "Artie doesn't want a wife. He wants a muse he can fire when the inspiration runs out." Artie's version, "Ava wanted to be the star of the marriage, and I already had that job." He wasn't done. In 1953, he married actress Doris Dowling, number 7, who gave him a son and a quick divorce. Then came the grand finale. In 1957, at age 47, Artie met Evelyn Keyes, Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister from Gone with the Wind. She became wife number 8. They stayed together 8 years, his personal record, before splitting in 1965. But Artie still had one more round in him. In the late 1970s, now pushing 70, gray-haired, and supposedly retired from romance, he met a woman in a bookstore in Newbury Park, California. She was 40 years younger, quiet, and didn't care about swing music. They married in 1980. Artie called it "my last encore." They stayed together until his death in 2004, 34 years, longer than all 8 previous marriages. 9 wives, 8 divorces, one man who quit the music business entirely in 1954 because, he said, "I got tired of being a celebrity. Turns out I got tired of being a husband even faster." Artie Shaw died at 94 with 0 regrets. When a reporter asked him late in life why he kept getting married, he laughed and said, "Because every time I thought, this time I'll get it right, turns out the only thing I ever got right was the clarinet." He beat Elizabeth Taylor's record by 1 groom and proved that in Hollywood, some people don't just fall in love repeatedly, they make it an extreme sport.
Zsa Zsa Gabor didn't marry men. She collected them the way other women collect shoes, some for daytime, some for evenings, and always a new pair when the old ones pinched. Born Sari Gabor in Budapest in 1917, she arrived in America in 1941 with diamond earrings, 0 English, and a talent for making every man in the room feel like the only one alive. Hollywood never quite knew what to do with her. She couldn't act her way out of a paper bag, but she could flirt in 5 languages and look like $1 million doing it. Marriage, she decided, was a much better profession than acting. Husband number 1 was already waiting, Turkish diplomat Burhan Belgay, 1935 to 1941. She left him in Hungary when war broke out and never looked back. Number 2 came fast, Conrad Hilton, the Hotel King, 1942. Zsa Zsa was 25, broke, and needed a green card. Conrad was 55, divorced, and needed arm candy.
They married in a blaze of flashbulbs. She gave him one daughter, Francesca, and he gave her a platinum charge account. They fought like cats and dogs. Conrad wanted a quiet wife. Zsa Zsa wanted applause. By 1947, she was gone, taking half his cash and all of his headlines. Then came the phase everybody remembers. 1952, British actor George Sanders, sophisticated, cruel, and the only man who could outsnark her. They married in a fever of champagne and insults. Sanders once introduced her as my lovely ex-wife-to-be. They adored and destroyed each other for 4 years, then divorced in 1954, with Sanders famously saying, "We didn't quarrel, we just ran out of ammunition." 2 years later, she reeled in Herbert Huttner, Wall Street banker, husband number 4, quiet, rich, and boring. She called him my tranquilizer. Lasted 6 years. Number 5, Joshua Cosden Jr., Texas oil millionaire, 1966. She bragged to the press, "Finally, I marry for money and nothing else." It lasted 11 months. Number 6, Jack Ryan, the man who designed the Barbie doll. Yes, really, 1975. He was brilliant, eccentric, and built her a mansion with heart-shaped bathtubs. They lasted 18 months. Number 7, Michael O'Hara, a divorce lawyer who handled one of her previous splits. She married him in 1977 just to see the look on his face. Lasted 1 year. Number 8, Felipe de Alba, Mexican actor, 1983. The wedding lasted exactly 1 day. They discovered on the honeymoon that her divorce from O'Hara wasn't final. The marriage was annulled faster than room service. And finally, number 9, Friedrich Prinz von Anhalt, a German hustler who bought himself a title and needed a famous wife to sell it. They married in 1986 when she was 69 and he was 43. The press laughed. Zsa Zsa shrugged and said, "This one will outlive me, so I win." She was right. They stayed together 29 years until her death in 2016. 9 husbands, 1 daughter, 0 apologies. She slapped a cop in 1989, went on every talk show in a tiara, and sold cubic zirconia on the Home Shopping Network like it was the crown jewels. When people asked why she married so often, she batted her false eyelashes and purred, "Because I was never without love, only without the right husband." Zsa Zsa turned serial marriage into performance art. She never pretended to be tragic. She played it for laughs, diamonds, and headlines. And every time the judge signed the divorce papers, she was already on the phone calling the next one, "Darling."
While Zsa Zsa screamed in Technicolor, Eva Gabor whispered in pastel and still managed to beat almost everyone at the marriage game. Younger, sweeter, and genuinely talented, Eva arrived in America with the same diamond ambition but wrapped it in Green Acres charm. She spoke with that silky Hungarian lilt that made men want to carry her across puddles, and she used it like a master conductor for 40 years. Husband number 1, Eric Drimmer, Swedish osteopath, 1939 to 1942. She was 20, homesick, and married him for a passport. She left the day the war ended. Number 2, Charles Isaacs, stockbroker, 1943 to 1949. Comfortable, rich, and dull. Eva discovered she hated dull more than poverty. Number 3, John Williams, plastic surgeon to the stars, 1956. He fixed her nose and promised eternal youth. Lasted 3 years. She said he was better with scalpels than with hearts. Number 4, Richard Brown, textile heir, 1959 to 1973. Her longest run, 14 years, mostly because he let her do whatever she wanted. When he finally asked her to slow down, she filed papers the same week. Number 5, Frank Jameson, aerospace executive, 1973 to 1983. met him on a flight to the moon. Well, almost. He worked on Apollo contracts. She called it her rocket romance. It crashed on re-entry. Then came the one that made headlines for all the wrong reasons. In 1983, at 64, Eva married Frank Gard Jameson. Wait, no, different Frank. Actually, this one was Frank Gard Jameson Sr., but the press barely noticed because the wedding happened on the same day Zsa Zsa slapped that Beverly Hills cop. Eva laughed and said, "Finally, I get to be the quiet sister for once." Number 6 lasted less than a year. Number 7, Seth Baker, shopping center developer, 1984 to 1990. He built her a mansion in Palm Springs. She left when the fountains ran dry. And then in 1992, at 73, Eva walked down the aisle for the 8th and final time with a man who looked like he stepped out of central casting for European royalty. Count Raul de Boisser was actually a divorced shoe designer from Mexico who bought a title the way other people buy timeshares. But Eva didn't care. She called him my prince, wore white lace, and beamed for the cameras. 3 years later, in 1995, Eva was dining at Trader Vic's in Beverly Hills when an ex-boyfriend, a much younger producer who felt jilted, started yelling at her table. Without missing a sip of her Mai Tai, Eva stood up, smiled sweetly, and knocked him flat with one perfect right hook. The room went silent. Then applause broke out. The clip played on every news show for a week. Eva dabbed her lipstick, sat back down, and told the maitre d', "Darling, please remove the trash." She never threw another punch, but she never needed to. That single swing said everything. Soft voice, steel spine. Eva stayed married to her faux prince until she died in 1997 at 76, still glamorous, still laughing, and still refusing to return any of the rings. 8 husbands, 5 decades, 0 bitterness. The Gabor sisters together gave the world 17 marriages, 1 annulment, 1 cop slap, and 1 legendary punch. They proved that Hungarian women don't just survive Hollywood, they conquer it one husband at a time.
He was 5'2", had a voice like a buzzsaw, and for 30 years was the biggest box office draw on planet Earth. Mickey Rooney made $12 million before he was 30, spent $12.5 million before he was 40, and somewhere in between married 10 women, loved every single one of them, and buried 2 before he finally ran out of I do's. Mickey didn't walk down the aisle, he sprinted. Wife 1, Ava Gardner, 1942. She was 19, unknown, and the most beautiful creature he'd ever seen. They married in a tiny church in Ballard, California because MGM told them to keep it quiet. 10 months later, Ava walked out saying, "He wanted a wife at night and a playmate all day. I needed sleep." Mickey cried for a week, then went back to chasing every skirt in Culver City. Wife 2, B.J. Baker, Alabama beauty queen turned singer, 1944. Gave him 2 sons, Mickey Jr. and Tim. Mickey was overseas in the Army when she filed. He came home to an empty house and divorce papers on the piano. Wife 3, Martha Vickers, the sultry actress from The Big Sleep, 1949. Lasted 3 years and produced 1 son, Teddy. Wife 4, Elaine Devry, gorgeous redhead, 1952. 4 years, constant fights, constant makeup sex, constant headlines. Wife 5, Barbara Ann Thomason, a starlet who called herself Carolyn Mitchell, 1958 to 1966. This one was different. She gave him 4 kids in 6 years and looked like a pinup even pushing a stroller. Mickey swore he'd finally grown up. Then, in 1966, he came home from a movie set and found her shot dead in their bedroom alongside a jealous stuntman who'd killed her and then himself. Mickey carried the guilt for the rest of his life. He didn't pause long. Wife 6, Marge Lane, Barbara's best friend, 1966. Married her 3 months after the funeral, lasted 100 days. Mickey later said, "I was trying to keep Barbara alive through Marge. It was insane." Wife 7, Carolyn Hockett, 1969. Another 4 kids, another 4 years, another divorce. Wife 8, Jan Chamberlain, the longest stretch of his life, 26 years on paper, though they separated and reconciled so many times the tabloids gave up counting. Jan was the one who dragged him to church, kept him alive through bankruptcy, and finally walked away in 2014 when Mickey was 93 and still flirting with waitresses. And then, because Mickey Rooney refused to leave the stage without an encore, he did the impossible twice. At 91 in 2011, he married wife number 9, a singer he'd known for decades named Jan Rooney, no relation. That one lasted 2 years. At 94, frail, in a wheelchair, and living in a rented house in Studio City because the IRS had taken everything else, Mickey fell in love one last time with a widow from his church. They never made it official, but he bought her a ring, introduced her as my fiancée, and told friends, "I finally found the right one. Number 11's the charm." He died in 2014 at 93, still holding her hand. 10 wives, 10 marriages, 9 divorces, 1 murder-suicide, 8 children, and countless millions made and lost, and not a single regret. In his last interview, he grinned at the camera and said, "I loved every one of them, every damn one, and if I had to do over, I'd marry them all again, just faster." Elizabeth Taylor had 8. Artie Shaw had 9. Zsa Zsa 9. Eva 8. Mickey Rooney had 10, and he still believed 11 was waiting on the other side. That's Hollywood's real serial lover, not the glamour queens with the diamonds and the accents, but the little guy with the big heart who never, ever stopped saying yes. And that, darlings, is the end of the story. If you loved these wild, messy, impossible love stories, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments who shocked you the most, Elizabeth, Artie, Zsa Zsa, Eva, or Mickey. I'll see you in the next one.